And just like that, we're live. I am so thrilled because when I made this show and I called it Catch Up, it was the most simple thing in the world. I just want to catch up with people. And right here, this is CEO Alex Shootman. Alex is CEO of a company called Workfront that I've had a friendship relationship with for I don't remember how many years. And then a few years ago, Alex became CEO and said, hey, come on in and do some work. So we worked professionally, but there was a really good connected bond right from the start. And I think of you as a friend. And so when I thought, who else can I reach out to do catch up? Who better than Alex Shootman? So Alex, thank you so much for showing up. Thanks for being part of this today.
Hey, Chris, when I got the note, I was really jazzed, man, because I have I love hanging out with you. I love the way that your brain works. You're a huge value for Workfront. You helped create our strategy, but I missed you. And so when you decided to make this happen, I'm like, I get to talk to you for 20 minutes. That's awesome. So thanks for having me.
I am so excited. I happened to notice something when I went to send you the message via Facebook today that I didn't notice and wasn't on my regular calendar yet. Today is not only are you up early because it's 8 right there, and you've been up for a little bit. It's your birthday today. Do I have that right?
Yeah, it's my birthday. It was. I was almost born on King Kamehameha Day. I'm born in Hawaii, and my mom went into labor during the King Kamehameha Day parade. And as such, she really wanted to name me Alexander Kamehameha Shootman. That was her choice. And then my dad decided differently. I think it would have been cool. So I kind of wish that then I might have been known as Cam.
Cam could have worked. I like it. I like it as a nickname, and what a great possible middle name. That one is probably the best possible middle name I've heard to date. Your birthday. So I asked you just kind of out of the blue, hey, want to do this? I've got a couple days. This one. What do you think? You said, let's do this one. Your birthday. So I hope that it gets way more, exciting as it goes from here. I mean, starting talking to us weirdos.
This is the peak of my birthday.
Well, then it's all downhill from here. One thing I wanted to talk about. So Workfront, I guess probably you should explain Workfront to people who don't understand it and just give them an understanding of the business that you run.
Yeah. So just like you would automate and manage customer relationships with a platform like Salesforce, or you would automate and manage your human capital, people processes with something like a Workday, people automate and manage high-value knowledge work inside of their organization with Workfront. So think of Workfront as an application platform that large companies use to manage product development, product release, marketing campaigns, technology deployments, the digital instantiation of what we used to do in the office.
So timing is everything. I mean, Workfront has done this for some amount of time, but getting these meetings, having these conversations, explaining this kind of future of work stuff to people was a lot more, it was a little trickier to have them understand what it meant to have this ability to kind of have a perfect snapshot of what's going on live and in real time. And then the coronavirus hits, then quarantine happens, then work from home happens. A lot of businesses suddenly found themselves down and looking for a lot more help. You must have found the exact opposite. It must have been insane there.
Yeah, there's two things that have been interesting that we found, Chris. One certainly is with customers that have been effective in digitizing their work. And I talk with customers, major medical device manufacturer. Alex, we haven't missed a beat, right? We've been more productive. But the thing that's been interesting, if you think about work, if you think about you and I trying to get something done, or us trying to get something done within large teams, there's synchronous work and there's asynchronous work. So what we're doing right now is synchronous work. We are iterating with each other. We're creating something while we're iterating with each other. But then there's also asynchronous work, which is, okay, now we're not with each other and I have to do my thing for a little bit. What happened when the crisis started is everybody bought their crisis tech stack, right? They bought Slack, they bought Zoom. All of our customers had Teams because we work with enterprises, but some of them weren't using it. They immediately started using it.
Right.
Those are really good for the synchronous work, right? And so now what we see is customers that had a platform like Workfront that's good at asynchronous work connected with the synchronous work. They were super effective. We're now having the opportunity to talk with customers about connecting a platform like Workfront to the investments that they made when they So think about it. They digitized synchronous interactions. Now they're having to digitize asynchronous interactions.
Right. Right. And that's, it's so funny. I mean, being in your office is kind of watching it get, discussed in internal ways, as well as how the presentations happen. It wasn't really until I started talking to people kind of out in the wild where I said, so you've got parts of your team who live and die on Slack. You've got parts of your team who live and die on Teams. You've got that boss who has only email, period. Email is it. There is no other software in the entire company, no matter what, even though everyone else has 14 apps open. This is the thing that organizes it. I know this sounds like I'm trying to make it like an infomercial, but like, it's so stunning that, because everyone sort of picked their horse, so to speak, they picked their stacks. This is the first time that everything can find its way to one place to start managing some of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, if you think about it, let's don't worry about talking about Workfront for a second, but let's just think about what's making work so hard, right? Think about the fundamental things that have changed about work over time. I used to be able to be very close to the work, right? So the work, I owned 100% of the work that had to get done, if especially if it was physical work, I could see the physical transformation of the object as I worked on it, right? Now it gets digital, so I can't actually experience the outcome of the work, and I am a part of the value chain of getting the work done, and the cacophony of tools that are available to me to make the work happen are infinite, and all of that came together. We could kind of stumble our way through it when we were in the office together, right? But then you blow up the ability to be in the office together, and man, it's like it's a real digital work crisis.
That's the thing. I feel that, well, I was going to say something that probably wouldn't be a very great analogy. There are lots of historic moments in life where comms did not link up very well. And, one of them, the entire United States was on different channels at the same time. And it was very much to our...
Cities would name their own time zones.
It was detriment, So I think that it's amazing that in 2020, we're still fighting these fights. This is still the conversation. And I think that the challenge, I wonder, the scenario that I'm wondering about is, I wonder if people are like, how long is it going to take them to catch up to this? That's the question I'm wondering. How long, or let me ask you, this is a tricky question. You could totally just say, I'm not going to answer it. What's pushback like? You're at a sales call, the people are like, you know what, this is dumb, I don't want it. Like, I can't imagine one that they ever say that. But what does pushback look like?
Well, right now, where we are in the transformation right now is people are still very much reacting to the immediate crisis. And that's what I said there.
Okay.
Kind of, that's why you've seen very good products. By the way, we use Zoom and Slack internally. Workfront is integrated with Zoom and Slack. So very good products. But you've seen everybody invest in this immediate, I've got to have the synchronous work. What people are starting to grok is the asynchronous work. But I would also say, Chris, a lot of the conversations that I'm having with people are just, I don't want to go back to the way that it was. I want to be normal. I'll speak for Workfront. We're smack in the middle of completely rethinking our office space, right? We have had the most effective meetings that we've ever had, because everybody's on a level playing field. You don't have people in the office, and some people are virtual. And so we're even thinking about, what does a meeting room look like in the future? The tables should be more U-shaped. There should be a bank of screens that are U-shaped. So what we're trying to do is figure out, how do we have three-dimensional interaction, because we love that. Like, it's great seeing you, but I miss being with you.
Sure.
And not screwing up the level playing field that's been created with this work from home moment.
That thought about physical space, I'm starting to read these articles, and you are, I'm sure, people want to come back, people don't want to come back, people aren't sure they want to, keep the work remote project going. And there's an opinion for everything in those regards. But your point, one of the things that I was doing at the very end of the 90s, early 2000s, was making the case for remote work. And that, you can't just be the guy on the Polycom. That's never been a very useful experience. And the other problem with remote work is that remote leadership, we run into a crisis almost instantly because people still want to see butt in chair kind of management, and butt in chair virtually means you're always online. You're always going to answer whichever chat app you use instantly. What guidance went around, for instance, in Workfront for that? Or were you just already ready for this because that's what you live on?
Fortunately, we use our technology, so that helped a lot. I think that, Chris, when we think about the better, and I don't want to call it a new normal, it's going to be a better normal, right? It makes no sense for a human being who's going to do screen time work to drive 45 minutes to do screen time work. That makes no sense. Now, the challenge that we've had is that those people, we were 37% remote or something like that beforehand. Those people don't have a first-class experience, right?
Right.
A conference room, there's 8 or 9 people, they're talking all over each other. So when the better normal has to create a first-class experience for everybody. But I would tell you what I think is and you already said it, what I think is the most important element of the better normal is the quality of frontline leadership. This is going to be a really hard job. Think about it. Chris, I got to give you context for your work. Like I've got to connect you to other people for the work. I need to be I need to create social connections. Right. I need to onboard new employees into the culture and the values of the company. If the job of management was hard before, in the better normal, the job of management is going to be really hard. And a lot of what we're thinking about are what are the new roles that we have to surround a leader with to help him or her be very effective with a distributed remote workforce. You can't just send an email and say, Chris, here's your 3 things to do today. I got to do them, But I think that the thought process around the role of the first line manager in the better normal is more important than the layout of the conference room.
It's a long time ago. I worked for the phone company. I worked for Ma Bell. And so did my mom, and no nepotism. And I worked at repair service for a while, which is who you called when things were broken. I worked before that at installation, which is who you called to get the new service. And then I did a very brief tour at 411 back when that was a thing, at directory services. And early on in that experience, one of my trainers said to me, Chris, what do you think that person wants when they call 411? And I go, their number? Right. And they said, yeah, but they also want to know that you gave them the right number. Right. And at that moment, what they were trying to train into me was a little cultural difference of it's not only that the customer is always right. The customer is guaranteed not going to say the right thing. And you're going to have to translate mentally what that search has to look like. This is pre-internet. This is green and black screens, the whole thing. And I think about that all the time. Those culture nuggets or whatever that have to come around, like what's the mission here, and how do you keep repeating the mission? Because we all know our company's mission statement. The senior team went away for a week, got some really cool mugs, and came back and told everyone this is what we all have to believe now.
Actually what we did is we got a bunch of words and we cut them up and then we scrambled them around in a hat, and then we pulled the words out in order.
This will be good.
That's good.
Most of them look like that.
Too often, I do think there's a wake-up call. I'm in the tech industry, so that's mostly what I know, right? But there's in the tech industry, we've kind of thought of culture as the ping pong table and food trucks. That's not
right.
Culture, right? I mean, if you think about it, for when people do their best work is when they're passionate, when work feels like play, right? And for you and I to do our best work, three things have to happen. Number one, we have to understand what it is, what our role is. Number two, we have to believe that our role matters, that what we're doing is connected to something. And number three, we have to have the opportunity to be proud of our work, right? So that means the tools, the skills, the coaching to look at the thing that we created with our hands and go, man, that's really good. So think about that. And that mostly happens with the frontline leader. So now what do we have to do to help that frontline leader create an environment for somebody so that they understand their role, they believe their role matters, and they're proud of their work? Man, that's a lift. That's a heavy lift. And the companies have to think about our leaders and how we help them create that for folks.
If they did all those things, that might be work done right. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I actually think that human dignity is fulfilled by work, right? I mean, like right. When we're doing stuff that matters, we feel fulfilled. And what better mission could you have on the planet than helping people do their best work? So
I of course made a small reference, birthday boy, to your book Done Right. Yeah. By the way, everybody, it's Alex's birthday. So if you weren't here when I announced that earlier, we should all be wishing him happy birthday in our comments here.
28 years old today.
Yes, exactly so. Yeah. So, and Carrie in the comments, my good friend Carrie Gorgone, who we've been nicknaming Carrie in the comments, actually put the link right to your Amazon for your book. So thank you, Carrie. I want to use that as a segue point because I've learned I'm the worst segue person in the world. You are here in quarantine just like the rest of the world. You're a pretty active guy, but you're also this published author guy. A lot of people decided to learn how to make sourdough bread. Did you noodle around the ideas of a second book? What did you do with yourself? What's your coronavirus bad idea project that you've been doing?
Well, I do think that when we're in a situation like this, and my responsibility as a CEO of the company is not a more important responsibility than anybody else, but it's a responsibility. And so that responsibility means that I have to do a good job of leadership. And so I think it's, kind of like put your oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on the person sitting next to you. And so yes. A lot of what I try to really focus on is the recipe that helps me remain centered, because if I'm messed up, that's not going to help the company. So a lot of what I've done, Chris, is put a lot of miles on my road bike, because that's what creates a space for me to think. It creates enough endorphins to counteract any of the bad chemicals that are going through the system. So that's what I've done. I've done a lot of. Certainly, it's been awesome to see my kids. I live in a beautiful part of the country, and I didn't realize that I could see mountains from my house. So that was kind of a nice gift as well.
As long as you can't see Russia, I think that's the dividing line.
Yeah, I didn't take up anything brand new. I haven't made sourdough bread.
Yeah, I haven't made sourdough bread. I mean, to me, that's one of the things that'll be in the Smithsonian. Will be somebody's sourdough starter from this moment. Where are your offices are in Utah? I think all of them, or some of them at least. Do you have more than one?
We have offices all over the globe. Our headquarters is in Lehi, which is in the middle of the valley that stretches from Salt Lake to Provo. Right. And I moved here from Austin, Texas. So we had spent we spent the last decade in Austin, and that's certainly a different part of the country.
I forgot about your UK office, as amongst many others.
By the way, we've got an amazing development office in Yerevan, Armenia, which is, if anybody doesn't know of the culture and the history of Armenia, it's one of the oldest civilizations on the planet. The culture is amazing. The food's amazing. The people are great. So that's another one of our offices.
My only connection to it is through Serge Tankian and his band, The System of a Down. So, yeah. But I follow him quite vividly, so I get a lot of Armenian history secondhand. No, my question with that was, are your people back to, you know, business as usual, or what's the opening scenario there and elsewhere?
Yeah, so we are actually right in the middle of our office opening right this second. Very different by geography. In Yerevan, because of some of the relative sizes of houses and different availability of bandwidth, there's quite a desire to come back into the house. Excuse me, into the office. What we'll do there is we'll actually do 2-week shifts. So we'll have a red team and a blue team, and we'll alternate those teams. We just did a survey in our headquarters in Lehigh. There are some people that are significantly challenged working from home for whatever reason. And so actually yesterday was the last day that we had where people could come in and get their effects. We're going through a deep cleaning of the office, reconfiguration of the office, and then we're going to allow a phase 1 group of employees who cannot work from home to work in the office. But essentially, the way that we're looking at it is you're still a remote employee. We're just providing you a space to work remotely because you can't work in your home. And then phase 2, we'll kind of think of that August, September, will be 25% occupancy. Then phase 3 will be 50% occupancy. But me and my team, what we've done is we want to take this opportunity to just completely change the culture. We want remote work to be a tier 1 place to work if you want to, kind of that stuff we talked about before. So we're taking this opportunity. We don't want to go back to the old normal. We think there's a better normal, and we're taking that opportunity to rethink it.
One last question related to that, and then I'm going to pop up a fact in the chat here. The HR experience, what does that mean for talent acquisition? You've been in growth mode for quite a while. Maybe you're standing pat for just a minute. It doesn't feel like you could possibly, but what does talent acquisition look like in a world where you can get your talent from anywhere? They don't have to necessarily relocate or whatnot. What's that like?
It's super exciting. Yeah, it really is. And you know, particularly when you live in a place like Utah, that's got some pretty homogenous demographics from a racial diversity standpoint, and then the thought of just really opening up that aperture is super exciting. But once again, it's going to require a very different way to lead the business to make sure that everybody that you bring into the company is culturally connected to the heritage of the business, to each other, to the values, to the team. And that just gets back to that, man, we're just going to invest a lot in leadership because leadership is going to make a difference. But the way I think about it, Chris, and then I'll shut up, in a world where everybody realizes that you can attract talent from everywhere to come into your company, it's going to be those companies that are effective in bringing in that talent from everywhere, inspiring that talent and leading that talent that are going to win. And so it's not going to be about, just your office space. It's going to be about leadership that's going to matter.
I think so. And this is selling your company, selling your views, and selling my product all at the same time. But this is a whole new system. There's a lot of elements of this that have existed for a long time. But if you try to bring someone in from far afield and have them feel like anything more than a hired gun, is sure not just going to handle itself. It doesn't just magically, this employee feels like they're part of our culture now because they have a badge and the check came. It's not going to work that way. I want to transition with my one last question. I know you've got a kind of hard end date, so I'm really watching the clock for you. Black Lives Matter. You have a lot of work with a lot of volunteer organizations. Obviously, I want you to talk about what this has meant to you and kind of your experience on it, if you feel comfortable talking about that.
I was really fortunate, Chris. Early in my career, I was at IBM, and I worked with a guy named James Chandler in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and his wife, Robin Chandler, both African-American, became friends of me and my wife. They now live in Houston. I think James still works for SAP. James really took me to task one day, and it was one of the best things that ever happened. We became close, and at a certain moment I said to James, James, I think one of the challenges is that, white people, they're kind of nervous to talk to Black people about stuff, and they don't know what to say. And I expected empathy from James, and instead he gave me the right answer, totally the right answer. He goes, Alex, I'm not going to let you get away with that. And let me tell you why. Because I've spent my life learning what your environment is like. But when have you come into my world and learned about my world? So until you come into my world and learn about my world, you don't get a hall pass. You don't get the opportunity to tell me that you're nervous about it because you don't understand it. So that just, man, Chris, that just really stuck with me. And then, at Workfront, we've got an employee resource group called Mosaic. And, we've had a really great conversation about terms like privilege. And I think that the problem with the term like privilege is there's so much interpretation of that. So you could tell me, Alex, you're privileged. And in my mind, I might say, Chris, you don't know my story, man. I grew up in a 1,300 square foot house in South Florida. My parents got divorced. I paid my way through college. I buried my mom and both sisters in the same year. Like, that doesn't feel like privilege, but that's not the right concept, right? Because the issue is not what did I do or did I grow up in money? The issue is dignity, right? The issue is every human deserves to be treated with the same exact level of dignity. And so if just because of how I look, I somehow get treated with a different level of dignity than somebody else, okay, now that is what we really have to focus on. And so, like, our Mosaic team has really shaped this concept of privilege away from me feeling like you're telling me that I haven't worked hard in my life to, oh, that's not what this is about at all. This is about that no matter who you are or who you love, when you show up in front of my face, I need to treat you with the same level of dignity as anybody else. So it all starts with James Chandler holding me accountable, which I appreciate to this day.
And it went from there. You adopted 2 children from Ethiopia. You brought them into your family. You have really shown that through the Mosaic Project. You've shown all kinds of ways that, it's all from that point of view. Has any of it shifted further? Because I feel like if there's someone I wanted to point to, especially at a CEO level.
I think where it shifted, Chris, is I think the challenge has been that there's a cognitive dissonance in our brains, right? Where we'll hear that somebody has an experience, we'll hear that there's a Black experience, and as a white person, I'm like, okay, I believe you've had that experience, but I can't believe that somebody did that to you, right? And we just can't hold these. It's almost like in the Me Too moment, we just can't hold those two things in our brain at the same time. And then all of a sudden something happens and the veil gets ripped. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, okay. Okay, I understand. So I think the problem in America, first of all, what we're dealing with is America's original sin, right? That we have never been able to overcome. And the challenge has been, we both believe that something happened to somebody, but we can't accept that somebody did that to somebody, right? And so it's caused a level of inaction. But I think this moment with George Floyd, with Ahmaud Arbery, and with Breonna Taylor, and with others, I think it's just broken the dam. And now we're just like it can't go on, man. Everybody deserves the same level of dignity.
I'm with you. And it's interesting. I know we've got to go. You've got your thing, so I'm going to let you go. And I'm going to thank you. And happy birthday, Alex. Mazel tov. I'm going to say that it is, you would think that is going out on kind of a somber note. It's going out on a positive note. So much change is happening right now. And it feels like we're one of the first times in a long time. There's movement.
Only ever changed through protest, right? We were founded by a protest. And so, like, we need to embrace that what's happening is American, what's happening is democracy. And every time that this has gone on, Chris, we've become a better country. And so I just got a lot of faith in the future of our country, and I'm optimistic.
And a wonderful guy to catch up with, Alex Shootman. Thank you so much again for showing up. Thanks for being part of this today.
Hey, thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. See ya.
See ya. Thanks, everybody. And then I hit